My name is Leonard Frost. I am 50 years old, and for a long time people believed I was finished. They were wrong. They thought silence meant weakness. They thought walking away meant defeat. They thought age meant irrelevance. That misunderstanding became their greatest mistake. I built my life the slow way. No shortcuts, no favors, no borrowed power. For 27 years, I worked in the same industry, rising quietly while louder men burned fast and fell early. I was never flashy, never political. I delivered results and stayed invisible. Invisible men are useful until they become inconvenient. The betrayal came from my own blood. My younger brother, Caleb. I had brought him into the business when he had nothing but debt and ambition. I taught him everything: clients, systems, mistakes to avoid. I protected him when he failed. And when success came, he learned something dangerous. He didn't need me anymore, or so he thought. The board meeting was his idea. He framed it as concern. "Leonard has lost his edge," he said calmly. "He's tired. Maybe it's time he rests." I sat there listening to a man wear my kindness like a suit. They voted. Unanimous. I wasn't fired. I was removed. That word hurts more than termination. Removed means erased. At home that night, I didn't shout. I didn't confront him. I didn't even call. I poured a glass of water and sat alone in the dark. And that's when the lesson arrived, sharp and unavoidable. The people who benefit most from your silence will one day weaponize it against you. That night, I stopped being silent. I didn't plan revenge immediately. First, I watched. Caleb expanded aggressively, took risks I had always refused, promised growth without understanding the cost. He wanted to be seen. I had spent years making sure nothing went wrong. Those are very different skills. Clients began calling me privately. "Is everything stable? Why do decisions feel rushed? Do you still stand behind this?" I answered carefully. "I'm no longer involved." That answer frightened them more than any warning could. Here's the truth most people never learn. Revenge doesn't begin with action. It begins with restraint. I didn't destroy Caleb. I let him reveal himself. Because arrogance always leaves fingerprints. And time is loyal to no one except consequences. As weeks passed, cracks appeared. Small ones, ignored ones. And I smiled for the first time since that meeting. Because I knew something they didn't. The man they thought was broken had simply stepped out of the way. And gravity was about to do the rest. Caleb believed speed was strength. That was his first mistake. He expanded faster than the company's spine could handle. New offices, new contracts, new people who smiled too easily and asked too few questions. He wanted momentum, headlines, validation. What he didn't want was caution. Caution had always been my language. And without it, the business began speaking in mistakes. I stayed invisible. No interviews, no statements, no public bitterness. People assume silence means you've moved on. Sometimes it means you're paying attention. A former client met me for coffee one afternoon. Not officially, not deliberately, just two men pretending the meeting was accidental. He leaned forward and asked quietly, "Would you ever come back?" I shook my head. "No," I said, "but I still care what happens to the people involved." That was true, just not in the way he assumed. Caleb's biggest problem wasn't greed. It was impatience. He removed safeguards I had built slowly, reduced review cycles, trusted verbal confirmations over written proof. He believed relationships were enough. Relationships fail when money tightens. And money was about to tighten. An audit request arrived. Routine, friendly, optional. Caleb delayed it. Delay is an admission without words. Someone inside the firm noticed. Someone young. Someone careful. The kind of person I used to protect before politics taught them not to trust anyone. That person documented everything. I never contacted them. I didn't need to. Fear teaches people faster than mentorship ever could. The second crack came through a partner I had warned Caleb about years ago. He dismissed me then. Now the partner overpromised, underdelivered, and vanished the worst possible moment. Clients noticed. Questions grew sharper. Caleb reassured them. Reassurance is cheap. Here's the lesson buried under all this. When you remove the person who prevents problems, you don't notice at first. You notice later when prevention is no longer an option. Late one night, I opened an old notebook. Not to act, to remember. I had written down every compromise I ever refused. Every deal I walked away from. Every shortcut I blocked even when it cost us growth. At the time, people called me slow. Now they would call those decisions stability. Caleb finally called me. Not angrily. Not accusingly. Nervously. People are saying things, he said. I thought you should know. I let the silence stretch. Things always get said, I replied. That's business. You could help, he added quickly. There it was. The first admission. I smiled, unseen. I'm not involved anymore, I said. You wanted it that way. He didn't argue. That told me everything. The audit became mandatory. Investors requested clarity. Caleb hired consultants who spoke confidently and delivered nothing concrete. He replaced depth with volume. More meetings. More slides. More talking. Talking doesn't fix fractures. I wasn't pulling strings. I wasn't leaking documents. I was doing something far more dangerous. I was letting the truth exist without interference. And truth, when finally given space, expands. One evening, I stood on my balcony watching city lights flicker on. I felt no anger, only certainty, because the man who betrayed me believed I was gone. What he didn't realize was this. I hadn't disappeared. I had simply become the shadow he couldn't see, until it was too late. And somewhere deep inside the company I had built, something was starting to bend. The first real damage didn't come from outside. Came from inside. That's how it always happens. Caleb called an all-hands meeting. Too early in the crisis. Too confident in tone. People who feel control slipping often speak louder to convince themselves they still have it. He stood at the front of the room, smiling too much, talking about growth, vision, and temporary noise. He said the word temporary 3 times. People don't count words consciously, but their instincts do. After the meeting, productivity didn't improve. It slowed. Not because people were lazy, because people were afraid. Fear doesn't make people quit immediately. It makes them document. Emails got longer. Approvals were requested in writing. Verbal promises suddenly meant nothing. Caleb noticed delays. He didn't understand their cause. The audit team returned with follow-up questions. Not accusations. Questions are worse. They asked about contract timelines, risk approvals, decision, authority. Caleb delegated answers. Wrong move. Inconsistency is visible even when incompetence isn't. Meanwhile, one client froze payments. Not canceled. Frozen. That distinction mattered. It meant waiting to see what happens next. Waiting kills momentum. Momentum was the only thing holding Caleb upright. I received a call from an old supplier. Are they okay? He asked. I didn't reassure him. I said, they're adjusting. Adjusting is another word that sounds safe and means nothing. He thanked me, and I knew he would prepare himself. Caleb made his first irreversible mistake 2 weeks later. He pushed a deal through without final compliance review. It saved time. It impressed investors. It violated an internal safeguard I had written myself years ago. That safeguard existed for one reason: to prevent exactly this situation. The issue surfaced quietly, not in headlines, in legal language. A clause flagged, a signature questioned. The partner demanded clarification. Clarification takes time. Time Caleb didn't have. Inside the company, something shifted. People stopped defending him. They stopped offering solutions. They started protecting themselves. That's when leadership truly ends. Caleb called me again. This time, his voice wasn't steady. I need context, he said. You designed this stuff. Just explain what they're seeing. I paused. Then I said the only honest thing. They're seeing what happens when shortcuts replace judgment. He was silent. You could still help, he said softly. I closed my eyes. Here's the lesson no one likes. Rescuing someone from consequences only delays collapse and makes it worse. I won't interfere, I replied. You're in charge now. He didn't argue. He couldn't. The board scheduled a closed review. No press. No announcement. Closed reviews are where careers end politely. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because I enjoyed his struggle, but because the balance was finally correcting itself. Revenge wasn't something I was doing. It was something that was happening. Naturally, quietly, inevitably. As I turned off the light, one thought stayed with me. You don't need to push a man off a ledge. You just need to stop holding him up. And Caleb? He was standing alone now. The boardroom never feels dangerous. That's what makes it lethal. Soft chairs, polished wood, filtered light that makes everyone look calmer than they are. Caleb walked in 10 minutes early. That alone told me everything. People who expect victory arrive on time. People who expect judgment arrive early. 7 board members. No assistants. No phones on the table. That's not protocol. That's preparation. The chairwoman spoke first. Her voice was neutral, which meant she already knew the outcome. Caleb, she said, this is a review, not a trial. Every trial begins with that sentence. They didn't accuse. They asked, why was this deal approved without compliance sign-off? Why were internal controls bypassed? Why were risk memos unsigned? Caleb answered smoothly at first. Confidence built on old habits. But habits crack under repetition. One board member leaned forward. Who authorized the override? Caleb paused. Just long enough. I did, he said. That was the moment the room changed. Ownership sounds brave. But in governance, ownership without justification is liability. They presented documents. Not everything. Just enough. Emails. Decision logs. Time-stamped approvals. No emotion. Facts don't need tone. Caleb tried a different approach. This company grew because we moved fast, he said. Because we trusted leadership judgment. That line would have worked 6 months ago. Now, it sounded like an excuse. The chairwoman turned to me. Leonard, she said, you designed the original compliance framework. Does this situation fall outside it? I felt every eye in the room. I could have softened the truth. I didn't. No, I said. It falls directly into the risk category the framework was designed to stop. Silence. Heavy. Permanent. Caleb looked at me. Not angry. Confused. As if he finally realized something too late. Another board member spoke. We also have concerns about leadership culture. That's corporate langwag. E for trust is gone. They reference turnover. Delayed reporting. Internal hesitation. None of it dramatic. All of it fatal. Caleb stood. I accept responsibility, he said. But removing me now will destabilize the company. That's the last card leaders play. Fear. The chairwoman didn't hesitate. Instability is already here, she replied. Our duty is containment. Containment means removal. They asked Caleb to step outside. He walked past me. For the first time, he looked his age. Older, actually. Inside, the vote was fast. Unanimous. No discussion. Boards don't vote emotionally. They vote when the math is clear. Caleb was called back in. They didn't say fired. They said transition. Immediate leave. Interim leadership. Public statement pending. Polite words for a hard ending. He nodded. Too slowly. He didn't fight. He couldn't. As he left, the chairwoman turned to me again. We may need your guidance, she said. Not authority. Guidance. I agreed. Not for revenge. For responsibility. That evening, news didn't break. Markets hate surprises. They prepare them first. But inside the building, everyone felt it. The fall had happened. And me? I didn't feel victorious. I felt complete. Because justice doesn't roar. It settles. The world doesn't end when power falls. It reorganizes. The press release went out at 6:12 a.m. Carefully worded. Emotionless. Sanitized. Leadership transition. Strategic realignment. Mutual decision. Lies that protect markets, not people. By 9 a.m., everyone knew. They didn't say Caleb's name in the hallways. They whispered. Whispers travel faster than facts. The stock dipped, not crashed, just enough to hurt, just enough to remind investors that stability is fragile. I watched from my office, not from the top floor. I never wanted the top floor. That's where people forget gravity exists. Emails flooded in. Support. Questions. Fear disguised as professionalism. No one asked why. They already knew. Caleb didn't call. That surprised me. Men like him usually demand explanation. But he understood something. NG now. There was nothing left to negotiate. 3 days later, his name appeared again. Not in finance news. In lifestyle columns. Former executive spotted leaving downtown apartment. Status erosion begins socially. That's the real punishment. I ran the interim review quietly. No speeches. No reforms with slogans. Just systems. Controls reinstated. Audit trails restored. Decision power redistributed. Revenge doesn't rebuild. Responsibility does. One evening, I received a message. Private number. We need to talk. I didn't respond. Not yet. Timing is mercy. The board asked if I wanted the permanent role. I declined. Power offered too quickly is rarely clean. Instead, I proposed a structure where no single person could dominate again. They accepted. That mattered more. Caleb's legal team released a statement. Defensive. He wasn't fighting the company. He was fighting the loss of relevance. That battle is unwinnable. 2 weeks later, I saw him. Coffee shop. Corner table. No entourage. No phone calls. Just a man reading headlines that no longer included him. He looked up. Saw me. Stood. For a moment, I thought he'd speak. He didn't. He nodded. A gesture of acknowledgement. Not apology. Not forgiveness. Understanding. I nodded back. Not triumph. Closure. That night, I walked home instead of taking a car. The city felt quieter. Not peaceful. Honest. Revenge didn't taste sweet. Tasted finished. Revenge ends quietly. Not with applause. Not with victory speeches. With choices. The board moved on. That's what institutions do. They absorb damage and continue. People, however, carry memory. I stepped away 2 months later. No farewell dinner. No framed plaque. Just an email. Short. Clear. Final. My work here is complete. Some assumed exhaustion. Others assumed strategy. Both were wrong. I left because staying would turn justice into ambition. And ambition corrupts faster than greed. I took a smaller office across town. Consulting. Ethics review. Structural risk analysis. The things companies ignore until it's too late. One afternoon, a junior analyst asked me, "Why didn't you take the power you earned?" I answered honestly, "Because power without restraint creates men like Caleb." Caleb disappeared from Publi. Seaview. Not dramatic. Just irrelevant. He wasn't imprisoned. He wasn't ruined financially. But he was exposed. And exposure changes how people look at you forever. Months later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. You could have destroyed me. You didn't. I still lost everything that mattered. I understand now. No apology. No excuse. Just recognition. That was enough. I didn't reply. Closure doesn't require conversation. On my 46th birthday, I stood on my balcony. City lights below. Noise. Movement. Life continuing without me at the center of it. That's freedom. Revenge didn't make me powerful. It made me precise. I learned something important. People don't fear the loud. They fear the quiet ones who see patterns. I wasn't a hero. I wasn't a villain. I was a correction. And corrections don't seek credit. They restore balance. Then step away. True revenge is not becoming your enemy. It's ensuring they can never become you again.